Basically, over the years, Great Britain has actually had some very, very talented developers. People like Jez Sand, Tony Crowther, David Braben, Jeff Minter. These are the people that I grew up like. They were the stars when I was first playing games. And these guys became very, very famous in England, in France, Germany, and Italy, and Spain. However, very few British developers really make a name for themselves here in America. And no, calling yourself Lord British, that doesn't count. Judging by how many people there are here today, actually, you can see that our speaker has actually already started to change all of that. In the time that he's been making games, he's already accomplished a lot more than most video game designers, would ever hope for. He can be as creative as he likes. He can design absolutely anything that comes into his mind. He's extremely talented, and so people are dying to work with him. Any publisher out there would be really happy to fund a project with his name on it, and most importantly, when he makes a game, he decides whenever the publisher is going to get to ship it, which is a great situation. I personally look up to him as a true visionary in this business. I recently spent a few hours with him in the Cheers bar in Boston. And if you get to spend some time with him, you'll realize how much he truly loves this industry. His passion for creativity and his interest in new design ideas is really infectious. And as he's demonstrated in the past with Populous, Theme Park, with Dungeon Keeper, and now with Black and White, I think he's shown that he's never scared to steer his ship into uncharted waters. Peter is an advisory board member of this conference, and we are truly honored that he's taken the time to fly over here to share his insights with all of us. So if you'd join me in a round of applause, I'd like to welcome Mr. Peter Molyneux.
Well, thank you very much, Dave, and I could endorse and repeat all the things you say about Dave. He's been a visionary to me as well. What I thought we'd do today is, what I'd like to do is show you and share with you some of the visions that have been going through my mind when I've been creating the latest game called Black and White. And what I'm going to do is go through a number of slides that really give an indication of what that vision was and where it came from. So, start off the first one, who I am. I started in the industry back in 1987. I started in the industry because I was starving and running a company and thinking, how the hell am I going to get enough money together to eat the next meal? And I've been very, very lucky to work with some extremely talented people, and my first game ever was a game called Populous. And I had no idea, absolutely no idea, that what I was creating other people would even like, let alone buy. And that's where it all started, and since then, the games industry has been a total passion for me, and I hope you'll realize that from what I'm saying today. So, where did the Black and White inspiration come from? Just to set the scene a little bit, I started a company up called Lionhead almost 3 years ago now, and the first game that Lionhead did had to be very impressive. And I've always got my inspiration from a number of sources. Films and music are terribly important to me. In particular, there were two films that gave me inspiration for this. The first one, which I'd love to show you a clip from, but I haven't got it, is a film called King Kong, the original 1933 film of King Kong with this huge ape, which unbelievably the filmmakers made you care about. And I wept like a baby within the final scene when the little biplanes were flying over and shooting King Kong. And I thought, when I was thinking about the next game, God, if I could weep over a giant, ugly creature like that, that is just an amazing emotional pull. So that was the first film that inspired me. The second film was an episode of The Outer Limits. I love science fiction, like I'm sure we all do. We wouldn't be in this industry if we didn't. And I'm going to show you a tiny little clip. And when I saw this scene, the idea for Black and White popped into my mind. It's not a very long clip. And it's...
The Outer Limits.
There's basically an episode called The Sand Kings, and this guy finds these alien eggs and brings them up and realizes that they have intelligence. And it was when he realized that they had intelligence, in this very scene here, where he was standing in front of the cage and there was these little creatures just running around his feet, that I realized that that was the feeling of power. And it's a feeling of power that I really wanted to imbue to people that played games. And also the feeling of fun as well, that they react to what you do, that they seem to be intelligent, if you like. And it's this seeming to be intelligent bit in the game that I really, really enjoy. But this scene coming up here is really what I want games players to feel when they play black and white. I want them to feel what it would be like to be a god amongst these masses. And it's the expression on this guy's face in a second that when you see it is kind of what I want people to feel when they play the game. He's going to make the expression in a second. It's that expression there that I really wanted to get from people. So that is a huge experience. The other experience is about being a child. When you're a kid, you know, those images in my mind are still incredibly strong. And I remember a key moment in my childhood. It was when I was walking through the woods one day and I happened upon an ant's nest. Like every kid has ever happened upon. I happened upon an ant's nest, and of course the very first thing I wanted to do is pick up a stick and just destroy as many of these little suckers as I possibly could. So I got the stick and rummaged around in there, but actually I found that, you know, if I dropped a little sweet by the side, they'd come out and they'd start eating the sweet, and it kind of in a way was like that film clip. But when I was a kid, the fact that you had this world, this little ant colony world, which you were sort of dealing and interacting with, which again is just a feeling of immense pleasure for me. And also the other thing is a toy called Action Man. Now most of you probably as kids had Action Men, and if you're anything like me, you were unspeakably cruel to your Action Man after a while. You know, my Action Man ended up torched with a blowtorch, was the final thing that I did with him. But it was these scenarios that I used to make with a kid with my Action Man, always involving him dying in some horrible way. And it's this marriage between those two which is particularly interesting. So those are two big experiences. So if you can get the feeling that I wanted to create a world, but also from the Action Man and the King Kong side, I also wanted to create a creature, something that seemed real. And what I'm going to do now is just go back through a few of my games and just have a look at those games and what mistakes that I've made in those games and how I hope black and white will rectify some of those mistakes. So the first game I did was Populous. Well, the game was really simple. You just clicked raise and lower land and you had little people reacting to it. But the big problem with Populous, the huge problem, the problem that always came when I showed it to any members of the press is there was no story. There was 500 levels which you played through, and I have to confess now, this is a confession that I'm going to make, that those 500 levels were all completely randomly generated. It wasn't that I handcrafted each one of the 500 levels and personally tweaked it all, not at all. In fact, it was a column of numbers which were filled in, which generated the world. And the biggest confession of all was the data disks, if anybody who played, called the Promised Lands. What I did was take that column of numbers and reversed it round. And that was the balancing on the Promised Lands. And I'm ashamed about it, and I feel I need to confess about it, and I'm really sorry, but there we go. The other problem with Populous was the fact that it was repetitive gameplay. It was the same thing over and over again. Now that's fine, that's cool. It's cool to do that, but also one of the real excitements for me about playing games is discovery. Is discovering that I can get more powerful, is discovering more and more features in the game. And once you played the first level of Populous, that was it, really. So, you know, there's certainly room for improvement there. Now, The next game I'd like to talk about is a game called Powermonger. It was probably the biggest disappointment in all of the games that I've done. It was a real world that I was trying to build. That was full of little people again, and they went out and did their jobs. But it didn't have a story again. Another problem, it was a succession of levels. It was a terribly overcomplicated interface. If you can just see down in the bottom section the number of icons that were around there, I think there was something like 32 icons. Now, asking somebody to remember 32 icons and what they do is just too much. One of the things that I try and think about these days is to realize that in your short-term memory, the average human short-term memory, you can remember 7 things. And that's if you're pretty exceptional. If you're not exceptional, it's sort of probably more like 5 things. And so once you've asked someone to do the 6th thing, to remember where the 6th thing is, it's an effort. And you feel like, oh God, now where was that icon? What did that icon do? Where was that person in the world? And that is the sort of things that we have to really, really think about now. So a little bit of inspiration on the interface side from Powermonger. And then Syndicate, which is, was which was a little bit different for me. One of the things you'll notice with all of these slides is that there is a common link between all my games. And the common link is little people. Every single game I've done has a little person in it somewhere in there. Even Syndicate, even Magic Carpet, which seem to be flying around on a carpet and shooting down monsters, they've all got little people in there. Now, the cool thing about Syndicate, yes, it was an action game set in a simulation of a city. But again, I tried to sort of think about a story for it, and the story behind Syndicate was that you had these chips that you could plug into your head, but it was completely outside the game. Once you got into a level, then that was it. You were playing a shoot-'em-up, essentially. There wasn't any of the story sort of coming out within the gameplay side. And part of that was the limitation of the systems that we were playing on now, and part of that was that, I had always focused on the gameplay element and not the story element. I now think that that's a little bit of a mistake. I think it's the story and the narrative is as important as the gameplay mechanism, providing the two marry themselves together. Then came Magic Carpet. It was really the first 3D game as such. Had a fantastic 3D engine written by a brilliant person called Glenn Corpus, who worked with me on all of the games, and really he excelled himself here. We still had little people, as you can see down the bottom there. I sneaked them in there at the last moment. I just couldn't bear having a game without them. And the only problem with Magic Carpet, its interface was quite simple, but it was repetitive gameplay again. And I tried to construct opponents. I tried to encourage the team to construct opponents, but really they lacked personality. There wasn't any way for them to express their personality to you and to offer challenges to you. And it turned out that certainly towards the middle and the end of the project, it was just too darn difficult. One of the things that I try to think to myself is, we're not trying to build games that beat people. We're trying to build games that entertain people. And that means you have to make a game challenging, absolutely, but not challenging to the point where it's just so darn difficult that you just can't complete it. The perfect game, I believe, is one where you can go through and you can play it and you have a challenge, you have to think about a challenge a little bit, but you get to solve it. And there's some many, many fine game examples of those. The next game, which was madly successful in Japan and in Europe, but not very successful in America at all, was a game called Theme Park, where you design and built your own theme park. The big problem here was, again, no challenges, but the graphics were just too childish for the US market. When people saw it, they naturally thought it was an entertainment product, an edutainment product. And they were, a little bit turned off by the graphical portion of it. Also, there wasn't nearly enough destruction in it. I should have put in just these death-defying roller coasters that just killed off half the people that traveled on them. I should have put in food poisoning at the hamburger store. I should have had, mass global deaths on the extreme fast rides, and it would have been so much cooler. And anyone making a theme park game out of there, just go do it. The disasters, when you're sitting on a roller coaster, you're always thinking, is this sucker going to keep together before I reach the end of the ride? And wouldn't it be cool to have a game where, well, it didn't quite do that? And the last game that I did, and probably the game I made the biggest mistakes over, was a game called Dungeon Keeper. I thought that concept for a game where you play the bad guy, where you play, everything you do has to be bad, you're the big opponent in this dungeon, was a very cool concept. But it was just an awful interface. I mean, the icons, there were tons of them. I mean, I managed to double the number of icons that Powermonger had to some 64 different icons. The game features were too hidden. I mean, I've never seen a hint book that actually uncovers all the tricks within the game that you could do. I mean, there was a little cheat in there that enabled you to have there was a character called the Mistress, and there was a cheat in there that enabled her to become naked, which I don't think anybody ever found. And it's all very well putting these little Easter eggs in there, but if they're so darn hard to find, then you just wasted your time and the graphic artist's time. Again, no opponent personality. It would have been so cool in that game to have the heroes, the people trying to conquer your dungeon, to have real personalities that were kings of the land that were trying to send questing knights in there. You could have done a lot. I could have done a lot more with it. And what it ended up with is a sort of dungeon fest, if you like, where you could build your dungeon up, put your creatures in there, and fight against someone else. It could have been an awful lot more. So those are the sort of influences bubbling around in my mind, and that led us to the first meeting of Lionhead, where we sat down, and I kind of knew what Black and White must have, a sort of must-have list. And the first in the must-have list was it had to be so impressive. The games industry is a deeply scary place, and I've walked around GDC this time, and it terrifies me. The quality which all you guys are putting out is amazing. And, as a small studio, you have to compete with that, and you have to compete with it on a level and make something which is fantastic in every aspect. Fantastic graphics, fantastic gameplay, fantastic story, fantastic narrative, and it's just a really, really, really tough thing to do. But with all that fantastic things that we can put together, all this complexity we can put together, one of the things it must have, it must be simple to play. It's got to be simple to play. You all watch MTV now, and MTV has destroyed your minds completely because your attention span is about 10 seconds now. That means I've got 10 seconds to firstly explain about what the game is, 10 seconds to persuade you to play the game, 10 seconds to show you something cool happening in the game. And that is tough to do, and the secret is simplicity. Not dumbing down, but just pure simplicity. The other thing, as you can see from my past games, what it had to have, what Black and White had to have, was a compulsive story. But not just any old story, a story, and this was a real ambition of mine, a story which would be unique to you. And this is what represents Black and White, the uniqueness to the player himself. And that's what computer games can do. The fantastic thing that they can do is we can make games now that are unique to each person that plays it. And there is no other entertainment medium in the history of our civilization that's had the ability to do that since the tribal storyteller, who used to go from town to town and tell his stories. And what he used to do, a tribal storyteller used to go from town to town and explain and tell a story, and if you got a laugh, he changed the story a bit. If he got people crying, he's changed the story a bit. And that's what we can do in the games industry. We can look at players, and if we're clever, we can modify our games and change our games to enable everybody who plays a game to have an entertaining experience. Absolutely fantastic. It had to have state-of-the-art technology, state-of-the-art gameplay, state-of-the-art AI engine, state-of-the-art physics engine, state-of-the-art graphics 3D engine, state-of-the-art interface, all of those. And it had to be unique and original, but it had to be understandable. You know, uniqueness and originality has its risks. And the risk is that you make something so unique that nobody understands it. And that is a huge, huge problem. So, the next thing I did was that we did at Lionhead was to make a team. And it's all very well for me to stand up on this forum and say all these things, but it's all of these people here on this list that make this game, not just me. And they're all totally, totally brilliant people. And then when we constructed a team, the first thing that we did was to make what's called a testbed version, which I'll show you now. This is the first screenshot of black and white that I showed some 18 months ago. You'd be pretty disappointed if that was all you were going to see today, I'm sure. But it really, this testbed allows us to try some of the game mechanics out. When you're making something new, it is incredibly hard and difficult to actually wait until the end of the project before you test the most risky elements of it. It's far better to actually make the most graphically horrible thing that you could ever imagine. And in fact, if you look very closely at this, those little dots down in the middle are little sprites from Theme Park. The buildings are from another game that I was working on. The landscape is absolutely no engine at all. It's just a mesh. But what you could do in this testbed is play the game. You could try some of the elements out, and that's so darn important if you're going to spend years, literally years of your life working and playing on the game. So that led to the design of black and white. What is it? Well, what black and white is a role-playing game where you play the role of a god. As you play a role of the god, as the story unfolds, you find you have the ability to take one creature in the world, and I'll be demonstrating this in a minute, one creature in the world and nurture it and grow it up and give it whatever personality you like. It is set within an amazing simulated world, which is the most realistic which I could possibly imagine at the moment, and a world that allows you to do absolutely anything you like in. It's a game which hopefully balances itself, and that's a very, very bold claim, and I hope it's going to come off, but what it does is tries to pace itself by looking at the way that you're playing the game. And it's a game that allows the player to be himself. In other words, within this world, within the story, you can be as evil, cruel, nasty, and despicable as you like. Or you can be wonderfully kind, generous, and caring as you want. And it's those two opposites and everything in between which came up with the name of black and white. From the darkest, deepest black to the whitest white, brightest white. And what black and white doesn't do is say, thou shalt be good, thou shalt be evil, thou shalt be this character, thou shalt be that character. It allows you to be whichever character you like. And these shots down here are the first conceptual shots, if you like, of the game. Now, the one in the middle is a character from Dungeon Keeper. And you can just see probably just tiny little dots down the bottom. And that's the feeling of scale that I got from King Kong. This feeling that this is your creature. He's not a little thing. He's a hugely powerful, incredibly strong creature. And you can make him whatever you like. And there on the left, or right, is the ape creature, the first idea we had for a creature in the game. And the image on the left is your citadel, where you reside. So, before we have a look at the demo, let's have a look at some of the technology within black and white. It's all very well having this great game, these great ideals for a game, but you need some great technology to make that happen. Firstly, there's a multi-view 3D engine that allows you to view the world from any aspect you like. Secondly, there's what we're calling multi-scaling AI, which allows you to see this world in simulation at any point. Also, that AI is applied to the creature. The creature is certainly the most amazing AI that I've ever worked on. I think it's, some would say, foolishly ambitious, but I can really honestly say that the creature that you're going to see today is the most amazing creature that I've certainly seen in any games industry, and it even stands up against some academic AI. A world-class physics engine. I wanted the things that you move around and that you manipulate to actually be real physics objects. So you're going to see a real physics engine working. A multi-threaded interactive story interface, which allows you to trigger story events when you like, and also allows there to be a huge number of different solutions to that story. The idea of gesture recognition, that you can make shapes and the game recognizes which shapes you make, which activates certain power-ups within the spells. An iconless interface which allows you to manipulate the world without the need of the clutter of my previous games. Things like real-time lip syncing and emotion syncing, which means that the creature's face, when you interact with him, will actually animate and speak words, and you'll actually be able to recognize them from the lip motions. A thing called conversation learning, where when your creature will learn how to speak and talk like you when you're online with him. I won't be showing that today, but it's incredibly cool. And a world which essentially balances himself. So, in summary, Black and White is a role-playing game where you play the role of a god. The world is what you make it. You nurture a creature into whatever you want him to be, an unspeakable killing machine or wonderfully benevolently kind creature. You play through a story which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Everything I'm going to show you today will be just features in the game. I'm not going to be able to show you the whole game. It'll just be features. It may confuse you, but please always remember that you are playing through this interactive story and making learning to play the game part of the game itself. I just don't think tutorials work. It's far better to look at what console games do and make the learning part of it part of the game, part of the story, enabling you to, takes pressure off you. The last thing I want to do when I get a game home and unwrap it and put it in the drive is spend 2 hours learning to play it. It feels like going to school. It's far better if that's part of the story. So the last slide is when it's going to be finished. It'll be released, I hope, on the 23rd of September this year. There'll be 3 different versions: Black and White Tales, which is the single-player version, Black and White Gathering, which is the online chat program, which I'll talk about a little later, and Black and White Worlds, which is the full-blown online side. And currently, those are the formats it's going to. Right, I've delayed long enough, so now it's time for me to show the game. And I'm very, very, very nervous about showing it, I have to say. The chances of it lasting to the end of this demo, at the end of this show, is well, thousands and thousands to one. So please remember, this is a game that's still under development. A lot of the stuff, especially the speech, is still got to be done. All the speech that you're going to hear in the game now is done by members of the Lionhead team, and they don't know how to talk at all. It sounds cheesy, it sounds horrible, but please forgive them. The 2 assistant sprites you're going to see are still scratched. So let me show you something of the world. For a start, you'll notice that it is completely free of icons. The only thing that in the game is this hand. This hand enables you to move around freely. We've tried to do away with the keyboard completely. I can move around with in the world just by clicking and pulling the world around, or I can point to places I want to go to and just double-click and move back. I can go and look at the world in incredible detail. For example, this is the And incidentally, this is such a cheap trick, but everyone always comments on it. It took about 2 seconds to do this little trick that I showed you here. I can go and look at the world in incredible detail. For example, this is a barrel with an apple on it, and in the apple you can see a worm, and I can pull back from that and look at the whole world. A persistent frame rate of 25 frames a second. You know, being inspired by the consoles is something that I've really tried to do here. Keep the frame rate persistent. It absolutely relies upon that. And even when you do look a long way away, it will try and maintain that frame rate. Okay, so what can you do in this world? Well, let me tell you the first game rule. The first game rule is you are a god, and as such you can do anything you like in the area that believes in you. And this red flash that is going across the land you see here denotes the area that actually believes in you at the moment. So I can, outside this area, I can do nothing at all. I can't pick rocks up, I can't do anything. Inside this area, I can do anything. So clearly, one of the things I might want to do is pick this woman up. And I can just be, you know, I might need to teach these villagers a lesson. You know, I don't want them to be cheeky to me, I want them to believe in me, and maybe I want to make a world that is really horrible and evil. So let's just chuck her around a little bit. So there she is. Oh, she's still alive. Let's see what happens if I pick up this rock and I just just drop this rock on top of her. You can do anything you like within the world. I can start bowling if I like. You can even do cool things. You can be nice to people. You don't have to be nasty. I can pick up this woman here and I can take her over to this field. This is what I call the micromanagement portion of the game. You don't have to do it. It's there. It's cool. If you do it, you'll find your villagers a little bit better. But if you want to get on with the game and do something else, you can do. So I can take this woman and just say to her, look, I want you to farm this field. So let's just gently drop her down. That was unfortunate. Yeah, I had her in my hand a little bit too long. Sorry. Yes, perhaps I shouldn't have been quite so vicious to her. Let's do that again. Sorry. It is cool being nasty. You don't have to be. I'll place someone down. There we go. You made it. And he should now. They're all actually mourning. You know, he is gonna. They're all a little upset by that, but they're getting back to it. I'll just take that distraction out of the way for them, and that'll be absolutely fine. So you can do that. You can do some cool things. Maybe this village needs some wood to build some more houses for you, so their town becomes bigger. There's more of them. They'll believe in you more. So you can even do things like I can pick up trees, and I can chuck trees around. I can drop trees down, and you'll notice the little villagers will actually start interacting with those trees and start chopping those trees up into firewood and enabling them to build more things. So, you know, it is an amazingly interactable place. You can do cool things like steal their food from one village and put it into another village. Anything you want. That is the sandpit idea, the ant's nest that I discovered as a kid. But where the game really, really comes into its own is when I introduce the creature. Now, the creature is... Actually, this is a bug. I have to tell you about this bug. It's quite amusing. You can pick up a little person and put them down near a tree, and this little person should now know that what I mean is for her to go and chop the tree down. The unfortunate thing is... I forgot to tell her to get out the way of the fallen trees. So quite often trees can fall on the people who chop them, which is a little detail of a bug that needs to be got over. So let's just look at the creature side of it now. Incidentally, you'll notice that it's actually the weather is actually changing. I love playing, I love adding things into games. One of the cool things about black and white is it's a fully weather simulation. If you have this option on install, you can actually, black and white, every time you play it, will go onto the web, will go onto www.weathercities.com, download weather information about the city that you live in, and the weather you see in black and white will be the same as the weather outside your window, which is quite cool. So let's introduce you to the creature. The idea is that in the first 15 minutes you discover these creatures, and you have a choice of 3 creatures you can pick up and care for. There is a lion, there is a cow, and there is an ape. And it's up to you which one you pick. Once you pick one, that's your creature. You do have an opportunity to change it. So let's just show you one of those creatures. I'm going to cheat now. I haven't got time to play the story, and we'll just create an ape. And here he is. He's a little baby thing at the moment. I'm actually going to cheat and make him a little bit bigger. He grows up, and as he grows up, he can get, by the end of the game, he can get absolutely huge, and you can see him comparatively, the comparative distance and scale to him. Now, the creature himself learns in different ways, and what I said is you can teach him anything you like, absolutely anything in the world you can teach him. I'll just bring him over here. And there are 2 distinct ways that your creature learns. The first way was inspired by me watching children, and I'm just going to put it on pause a second while I explain this point. The cool thing about children, or the very uncool thing about children, depending on which way you look at it, is that children never stop learning. Just because I turn round to a kid and say, look, this is a lovely blue pen, and they'll say, blue pen, and that teaches them a very strong lesson that this is called a blue pen. If I then turn back and carry on watching a football game and say, come on you bastards, score a goal, then don't expect your kid to suddenly switch off learning. Expect, and indeed you will experience, the fact the next time you go down to the supermarket, your kid will actually say, come on daddy you bastard, I want to get home. And that key thing, that key way of learning was an inspiration for black and white. Your creature watches you play the game, and every time you're mean, every time you're nasty, every time you do anything in the world, he is taking that as inspiration. That means he is a reflection of the way that you play the game. That's the first way he learns, but more importantly, maybe more importantly, is your ability to say, that was good, that was bad. I showed him this object, he didn't do anything with him, I'm going to tell him off now. You tell him off just by clicking on him, holding down the mouse, and I'm just going to change it to daylight so you can see what's going on. And I'm now interacting with him. See, he's a bit cheeky, and he's got to be told off. And you tell him off just by slapping him around a little bit. If you really, really want to tell him off, then, just really slap him around. And that actually tells him bad. It's like rolling up a newspaper and hitting a dog. I mean, it's a bad lesson. He's depressed now, and you've got to feel sorry for him. The other way is just moving the mouse slowly over him and just stroking him. And he really, really likes being stroked. He likes his hands being run through his hair. He understands about all his body parts. You can stroke his tummy if he's got a stomachache. You can tickle his feet. And for that extra special reward, of course, royal massage is one that he particularly enjoys. So, trying to make this real living creature was a real ambition of mine. What I'm going to do now is, again, because we don't have the site, I really want to show off some of the things that creatures can do. I'm going to bring up an editor. What I'm going to show you now is not part of the game at all. It just allows me to activate cool features about the creature, just to show you some of the things that happen during the game. So I'll activate that editor and load in one of the other creatures, which is a tiger. This creature, as I said, it starts off in the game as this tiny little thing, and as the game goes on, he grows up until he ends up this huge mammoth thing. Now, obviously, if you've made this huge creature and you've made him a caring, kind creature, then him walking through a village is a problem, because he'll end up squishing more little people than he will saving them. But not only does the creature change in size, but he actually morphs. He morphs in real time to reflect his state. For example, if you've encouraged him to eat a lot, then he will start putting on weight. He'll end up really, really fat. Now, you're going to have to, what you can do with your creature, a cool thing is, while you're playing through the single-player game, you can take your creature out of the single-player game, take him online, and meet other people's creatures. Now, you're the one that has to justify why your creature is hugely overweight, or perhaps why your creature is completely underfed. So your creature changes in size from what he eats, but he also changes in size. He's not part of the game, so that's why he walked through him, by the way. He changes in size in terms of size and his strength. Your creature can lift things up. He can do manual tasks for you. He can fight for you. The more he fights, the more muscles that he actually puts on. Or any combination of those two. So he can be fat and thin, fat and strong, or he can be fat and weak, any combination of those two. But most importantly, as you develop his personality, he visually changes. Now, clearly, the creature that I'm developing is going to be a hard bastard. He's not going to be someone who you mess with, and so he's going to be a little bit evil. So he will slowly change and morph to become more evil and vicious looking. Or if you decided to make him nice and caring, he'll change and morph and become more good and godly looking. And the sheer number of things that your creature can do is amazing. He has all the facial expressions that the human face can possibly make. He can smile, he can laugh, he can make all the lip motions, all the 44 phonetic motions that the human voice can make, and that enables you to take him online and chat with him, and him actually mouth the words you're either typing or saying across a microphone. You have to train him up in a variety of things. One of the things that you do have to train him up about, which I apologize for, but British people just love anything to do with toilets and lavatory humor. And one of the things that you can teach him is where and when he can go to the toilet. So you can literally, and I apologize for this word, but I can't think of a better one, you can literally train him to shit all over your opponent. And you can absolutely do that. You can also train him to go to the toilet on fields. If he goes to the toilet on fields a lot, it'll be used as fertilizers. You can persuade your little people to pick up the poo. It may make you feel a little bit nauseous to see this, to see all this poo moving around the world, but they will put it down on the fields. And just before the show, we had this terrible, terrible bug with the AI where basically what was happening, the creatures got obsessed with their own feces and ended up learning to fight with them by picking them up and throwing them at each other, which made me feel ill. And I tell you, I am nervous about showing you the fighting in case this bug wasn't fixed, because if that happens again, it just is, it'll turn you off the whole product. I'm going to have to get rid of my creature soon. But where the game really, really comes into its own is the fighting system. What I wanted to do is create a fighting system that was as comprehensive as any fighting game you can get on any system ever, and enable you to teach and encourage your creature to fight. So if I just what I'm going to do is set up a fight I'll just do
Evil
one
one?
thing first.
Yes, goody two-shoes?
Why are we always arguing?
Because I hate you.
What I'm going to do is, I won't take any chances there, is set up a fight between two creatures. And I'm going to set up a fight between the tiger and, surprisingly, a cow. You may think, I know what the outcome of this is going to be, the tiger's going to win. Well, we spent a little time on the cow, and he's not the wimpy thing that you might have thought of. Right, here they go, they're just sort of sizing each other up, and, okay, come on cow. And what you'll notice is, as they fight, we have this very, very cool persistent damage going in on the creatures. You can just see down there the cow has been hit on the belly. And you can just see that a bruise is starting to develop. The bruise is still. I want you to see this, the cow special. It is quite cool. Anyway, a bruise is starting to develop where he's been. Now, that damage that is done by the lion is persistent. In other words, it will heal over time and a scar will remain. That means that your creatures are completely unique. When you're going online and you see another creature and he's walking over the hill, he looks hunched and mean and vicious, you know exactly what the player is behind him. I just need to change the odds because my tiger is getting mashed up here. What I'm going to do is just make the tiger a little bit more evil. And also, just make this a little bit in the tiger's favour. Just a little bit. Yeah, that's better. I mean, I could have done. Okay, we'll change it back again. There we go. So the creatures are incredibly cool things. There's one more thing. There's one more thing I've got to show about the creature, but it is nightfall, and this cool thing, this moon that's going up here is what the moon will be like outside this hall tonight. You know, trying to make it as real as possible. One last thing, one last trick with the creature. There's loads and loads of stuff which I haven't really shown. I'll show a different creature. This is a wolf. He morphs in quite a cool way. Yeah. One last thing I didn't show with the creature is some of the individual stuff that he does. He can get happy, he can get cold, he can get hot. If you do decide to take your creature online, what we will be doing is introducing colds and flu to the online when you're online. So if your creature's been going around with other creatures, he can actually catch a cold from those other creatures. The other cool thing is that you will notice that your creature, if you are playing a CD in the drive, you can play any music CD you like while playing black and white or in any MP3, you will notice that after a while your creature will start tapping his foot. And you will further notice that after a little longer he will learn to dance in perfect time to the CD you're listening to. Now, that means what we are actually doing is we're going to www.tunes.com, downloading information on the music track, finding out what the type of music is, and so your creature will learn to breakdance. If you can imagine what it's like going online with your creature who is just expert at breakdancing and showing them off to everyone else, it's ultimately cool. So
Some say you cannot have good without evil.
enough
I say
about
there should-
And I say
the
there should be
creature.
both
I'll
good
show you a
and
bit
evil,
more about the
but evil
creature a little
should
bit
just never
later
be
on.
done.
You really have
What I'd
thought
like to
this
show you
through,
now
haven't
is
you?
something to do with the magic system. The idea of the magic system is that you need little people to pray and worship you to enable you to utilize the magic. And that's what this thing is here, rather strangely. They built it in your honor, and what you can do is you can move this up and tell them, right, it's time that you all came and started worshipping me. And they'll all start to run towards the citadel, and when they get there, they'll start praying. Now, what I'm going to show you now is the inside of the citadel, which is extremely important. It allows you to look at certain things within the world, and this is showing off some of our new engine technology, which I haven't shown before, but it's quite cool. This is the inside of the Citadel. This is our new 3D engine. It has real-time ray tracing and a thing called real materials, which if you look at this bronze statue here, you can see the light sourcing reflecting off the bronze statue. You can see all the reflections on the floor, all the lighting effects that are going on. I think it's really cool, and it's going to enable us to do some amazing things with our next game. What is inside the Citadel are different rooms. There is a room for your creature, there's a room for the story, and these rooms have different pictures in. You can do an incredibly cool thing with these pictures. If it's a story if it's a part of the story that you've completed, a challenge, what you can do is you can go up to one of these pictures and click on the picture and think to yourself, I didn't like the way I did that challenge. I really didn't, I thought it wasn't right. You can click on that challenge, the game will allow you to do that challenge again, and then it will fast forward all the effects that the difference that you made in that challenge would have taken. It's like going back in time, making a little tiny change, and then going forward in time again and seeing what that change does. I think it enables people to absolutely get things right. The Citadel is there, designed to be a really beautiful, really beautiful place. Okay, let's have a look at some of the
Things
spells.
are quiet. I don't like it.
I do.
What I'm going to do is ask my little people here who are all chanting away. I'm going to ask them to pray for a fireball. And that charges up
Where
this
would
fireball.
faith be in
Now
You will have
we get
many
some
at
bad
your disposal.
voiceover stuff
Use them
now.
wisely. If you are using the prayers of your people.
And what I can do with these fireballs is I can throw them. So I'm going to now throw this across the landscape, and you can see that it just shoots across the landscape. What I've tried to do with this is try and make this as intuitive as possible. I'm just going to cheat now and give myself free access to the spells. Try and make this as intuitive as possible, also allow you to get good at casting magic. So you can do some cool stuff with it. For example, I can throw a fireball and just give it a little tiny bit of aftertouch, just like you do in a football game. Just a little bit of aftertouch, and you can curl it round mountains. If we're playing a multiplayer game, I can start bombarding your places with fireballs. The other thing that you can do is, using the gesture technology, I can just paint on the landscape a symbol, and this symbol powers up the fireball. So if I cast it now, you can see that it actually turns into 3 fireballs. If some of those gestures can be really complex, for example, I can do a gesture like this, which is a pentagram, which really powers up the fireball, and just allows it, a bit loud, sorry, just allows it to be a really explosive fireball. The other thing is that these gestures it's really flexible. I must warn you now, if anybody of you plays me at multiplayer, one of the gestures in the game is my signature, which is the ultimate cheat for me, which allows me to cheat with everybody else. The spells are not only destructive, there are creative spells. This is a storm spell, which allows me to create a storm. Again, I just paint down on the landscape the area of which I want the storm to cover. And if you have a look, it'll actually start raining now. you can then push that storm across the landscape towards somebody else. You know, again, trying to make things as realistic as you possibly can. There are spells which allow you to create things. For example, I can click on this. Maybe my villagers have run out of wood.
Over an area.
What I'll do is just create a magic forest. And I apologise that the woman hasn't got any clothes on at the moment. She should do. She'll go out and create a magic forest for you for little people to chop down the wood. There's also 1 second. There's also the ability to cast magic on your creature. For example, if I have a creature, I can cast a magic spell on him. I may want to send him out of my territory. I may want him to try and persuade other villages to come across to my cause. And so one of the spells that is extremely useful for that is the crash spell. Sorry about this. One second. I told you it'd crash. It's a miracle it's lasted this long. Let's just quickly go back in. Yeah, what you can do is you can cast magic on your creature, but very coolly, any of the spells that you've seen me cast, you can teach your creature any of those spells. That means when one creature meets another creature, instead of fighting it out hand to hand, they can actually have this incredibly cool battle of magic. I mean, just this immensely cool battle of magic that's there. So that's very cool, and I'll just go forward and just very quickly create a creature and show you a couple more things. I'm just completely cheating now. Find the right spell. 1 second. I'll let the creature entertain you while I'm doing this. Right, this is the invisibility spell. If I cast it on my creature, then it pours a potion over the top of him, and he'll slowly go invisible. And of course, while he's asleep, which is useful. And the only thing that doesn't go invisible are his eyes. So you can still see his eyes. So if I just start slapping him around, you can still see his eyes that's there. You can turn creatures to stone. If I just show you my creature actually casting a spell, what I'm going to do is... that was a mistake. Sorry about that, it's just a little wait. What I'm going to do is I'm going to force my creature to cast a spell. For example, I'll force him to cast the fireball spell that you just saw against this creature here. Now you notice that he is actually doing the same gesture that I actually used earlier, and he's going to cast that against the poor unsuspecting tiger that's there. So your creatures, there is no limit to the, yeah, look at the smile on his face after that. There is absolutely no limit to the amount that your creature can learn. Now we're running a little bit out of time at the moment, but what I'd like to do is show you some of the story stuff in the game now. The idea of the story stuff is that you have these two advisors. You've seen them pop up occasionally. They're like the Hollywood angel and devil on your shoulder. There's the angel that's always trying to get you to do good stuff. She's always trying to get you to be nice and kind. And there's a devil that just wants you to be mean and cruel and nasty. And as you play the game, they are listening out for prayers.
The woman inside this house is praying to you for help.
Prayers of the little people. And you can choose to activate those prayers or not. And it's essentially these challenges which enable you to progress through the story. So I'll kick off one of these challenges. The speech you're going to hear there is very, very cheesy. I apologize for it, but gives you an example.
O great one, I kneel before you. My brother Tarvis in the fever has left his sickbed and wandered into the forest where he must be lost. He is so weak, I fear for his life. Hear my pleas for help, I beg you.
Help this woman and her poor brother, and you will surely reap the benefits. She has put a faith in you.
You can't run around after these people. They have to live their own lives. If you want them to respect you as a god, carry out an act of a god. Kill one of them.
Right. Well, what shall I do? How evil or how good shall I be? Well, clearly for this demonstration it seems evil is good, so I'll be evil. Now, I could be a little bit evil. I could perhaps just ignore this. I could perhaps go to the brother and pick him up and kill him. But I could be hugely evil if I liked. And the hugely evil answer to this is to pick up the woman, to kill her in any way you see fit, basically. Where is she? Where's she gone? Pick her up and to put her by her dead brother. So by her close to death brother. That means what you're doing is killing the woman that prayed to you in the first place, killing her off, and then dropping her by the. I'll just do that one more time. Just because there's one little tiny bug with it.
The woman inside this house is praying to you for help.
Right, if I just activate that again. So you choose how you solve this challenge. Do you want to be kind and nice?
I kneel before you.
Or do you want to be evil and
My
nasty?
brother Tarvis in the fever
and that
has
is the
left
whole
his
key
sickbed
to the
and
way that
wandered
the story,
into the forest where he must be
actually
lost.
unfolds.
He is so weak, I fear for his life. Hear my pleas for help, I beg you.
Right.
Help this woman and her poor brother,
I
and
could
you will
send my
surely
creature
reap the
to help me
benefits.
do this as well.
She has put a faith in you.
You can't run around after these people. They have to live their own lives.
So if I pick her up now...
If you want them to respect you as a god, carry out an act of a god. Kill one of them.
So I'm just going to pick her up and just throw her around a bit. Well, that's not too far, no. That's right. So there she is. So I'll pick her up now, and I'll take her to...
That'll teach her to meddle with nature.
But it's terrible. We can't run a religion like this.
So I'll just take her to the forest where her lost brother is, and just drop her down next to her brother.
My sister, dead? How can this be?
Now that was a pretty evil thing to do. Equally, I could have gone in and I could, of course my creature's just seen this and he's realised that, you know, I've been pretty evil and vicious. He's going to learn something from that side of it. And for that, you get a little reward, you get an extra spell. So that's essentially black and white. I could show you, I could talk about it all night. And I'd love to talk about it all night, but maybe if we have enough time, if anybody's got any very quick questions they want to ask.
Investigate now.
Whilst I leave the game in the creature's capable hands. Does anyone have any questions
my
at all?
poor children
Don't
are
have
lost.
to ask. Nobody?
A stranger has been seen putting the
5, 4,
children
3,
into
2, 1.
trances.
Yes, we've got one person.
He has them imprisoned in his secret hideaway.
It looks like a wonderful game, Peter. Thanks for showing it to us.
No,
I was wondering if you saw the recent remake of Populous, and if so, what you thought of it?
Populous, the beginning. I thought it was a very, very beautiful game. They did a fantastic job. I know the person who developed it. I respect him an awful lot. I still think that the idea of Populous being a very, very simple game was a very compulsive one. Any other questions? Actually, we're running awfully late. Maybe we should hold the questions. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed.